Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm me, and you're not. And I'd like to welcome to this week's edition of the show my guest, Ogierd Uziemblo. Very good. It is you. It is you. It's not an impersonator. And the irascible and unutterably elegant in his bicycling equipment, Anthony McFarlane Gonzalez. How are you, Anthony? How are you, Ogierd? Don't speak all at once. Hello?
Hello.
Hello,
nice
Ogierd.
meeting you this beautiful day.
Ogierd, it's a great pleasure to see you. I'm in the studio, and you're not. We're having. You've got a big day today. It's museum night.
Yes, we are having the museum night in Warsaw, so there's going to be a couple of hundred places opened during the night, in which it's either educational places or others. And well, one of them is our Oriental Studies department that is going to be hosting the Eastern Magic Night.
Fantastic.
So we're going to talk about talismans, magic, and other things connected to the East and Eastern Europe.
Well, that's great, because this show goes out right about the time people could go out and enjoy this. About 10 o'clock we're on tonight, Saturday night. Okay, we've got Anthony back, but I'll continue with Ogierd. Anthony, are you gonna? You have to stay in one place. You have to stand. Did you bring tinfoil?
I should have, actually.
You need a tinfoil hat, and you have to stand in one place on one foot, right? And whistle the Star-Spangled Banner.
Remember, you have to put the tinfoil hat on your head, otherwise the 5G is not working.
If actually in Poland it works better if you whistle March Dąbrowski.
March Dąbrowski.
It's a song, never mind. It's a Polish patriotic song that everybody knows. You saw Ogierd. Even Ogierd laughed, even though the joke is not up to his standard. Hey, I got a couple of jokes for you before we start today and get into the crazy stuff about Poland becoming an empire again. We're going to discuss that today. Again, because Poland was an empire once upon. Don't shake your head, both of you.
I don't know, you have something imperial in what you think about recently. First, it is the coronation business. Now Poland becoming empire. What's next?
And it's all emanating from the British.
I know what we should do. I think the next issue should be crowning the Trump.
Crowning Trump?
The Trump.
You got one thing.
Trump.
You got one. You need to alter that statement a little bit. Trump will crown himself like Napoleon. Don't worry.
Yes, it's funny.
He'll just crown himself.
Whatever the verb is about Trump, whatever you believe that verb is, he is doing something to himself, but it's not crowning.
Okay. He's eating too much McDonald's, apparently, and it's affecting him. All right. So I tell you, the guy has got a gift of the gab. The guy is a great extemporaneous speaker. He really is. Okay.
Well, on the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, he does not know when to shut up.
Also,
I was just going to say he has an insert foot and mouth syndrome all the time.
Foot and mouth syndrome. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
I got a couple of jokes for you before we get in. You want to hear these jokes?
Sure.
Military jokes.
Oh, okay.
Because there's a war on, and you're in the military, and Ogierd and I are not. So we're not in the military, and you are, and there's a war on. So I got a couple of military jokes. Is that okay?
Sure. Let's hear them.
How many more times are you going to say the word military?
Well,
Probably a couple more.
I'm going to say military one more time. I'm going to say it in each joke. But these are taken from my joke vault at home. I have a special vault. It's a large walk-in vault.
Oh, so it has a lot of...
What? You can't curse on this show.
No, cobwebs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's a lot of cobwebs. Thanks. Oh, because I don't use it very often. Is that what you're saying? Thanks. You're going to love these jokes. Anyway, these are right from the joke vault. care of Reader's Digest. I love Reader's Digest. It's the funniest stuff.
I remember now. There was this little series for kids with the stories from the vault, and you have the mummy. So you're the mummy.
Yeah, no, I'm the daddy. I'm the papa.
No, mummy, like the dead body.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Hey, look, I may not be a professor, but give me a break. Or an intelligence expert, for sure I'm not that. An intelligence D expert. All right, here's the first one. So this guy, AJ, and his platoon of recruits are marching down. They're doing some practicing, right? They're marching out there in the bush, and their sergeant slips and tumbles down the side of a hill into a ravine. And he stands up, scrambles back up the hill, and he gets up there. All the troops break up. They're laughing at him. Ah, look at the Sarge there. Not so sure-footed now, are you there, buddy? And the sergeant gets back at the top. He says, all right, everybody who laughed, get down and give me 20. So, about half the guys get down and start doing push-ups because they laughed. And he says, all right, all you guys who are lying, give me 40.
Okay, I like that one.
That's a Reader's Digest joke. All right, I'll tell you, here's another one. In Vietnam, these guys were hunkered down in their bivouac hut, in the jungle there. They dug into the side of a hill or maybe a berm, like in a rice paddy, and they had covered it up with lumber for protection. And they had one little light bulb. They would work it so they would have one light bulb, tied to a battery so they could see, inside while they were hunkered down because they might be in there for a long time. Okay, and one light bulb. And there was a guy reading a newspaper article from back home, came in his mail, and about a congressional investigation into why some troops were living in luxury. There were troops in Vietnam living in luxury. And the guy goes, well, there goes our light bulb.
That's not right.
There goes our light bulb. No?
Yes. Well, are you sure they weren't talking about the Air Force? Or
probably.
Force?
No, but the Air Force had cushy. Yeah, exactly. They were having a cushy existence. Anyway, there goes the light bulb. That's it.
But talking about the luxury in the troops, do you know what was the Mao Zedong's son's nickname during the war in Korea where he died?
No.
Fried rice with eggs.
That was his nickname?
Yes.
Because that's all he ate?
Because he was able to eat fried rice with eggs, which was considered a luxury item at that time.
Oh, eggs were a luxury, right?
And the joke.
Was rice a luxury?
The military joke about it is actually he probably died because of it, because they're cooking the fried rice with eggs for him when the Americans hit the fire, because they could point it at the smoke.
They saw the fire and they killed him. I didn't know that Mao's son was killed by. And where was he killed? In Korea or what?
In Korea, in the Korean War.
Yeah, because people don't remember that the Chinese actually fought Americans head-to-head in the Korean War. It's not the first time. If Americans were involved in this particular conflict with Ukraine and Russia, it would not be the first time that America faced a Cold War opponent.
Yes.
Head-to-head.
Exactly.
But you don't hear people talking about that. They talk, it'd be the first time this has ever happened. But
that's not true.
Yeah,
obviously
it's not.
True.
Yeah, obviously by your.
You know that some Polish people were on the wrong side fighting in the Vietnam War too.
They were fighting with the Viet Cong.
They were so-called advisors in the Vietnam Army, in Viet Cong.
It makes sense.
Poland.
A lot of North Vietnamese are the ones who came to Poland. There are not as many South Vietnamese in Poland. The legacy.
Well, actually, it equalized recently, but yeah, in the beginning it was mostly Northern. And actually, I remember the times when talking about museum night, there is this military museum that is moving now, but there's still the exposition around the museum with a lot of tanks and planes and so on. That there used to be an American vehicle captured during the war in Vietnam by Polish experts.
So, okay.
It disappeared after we joined NATO.
Yeah, this is the military museum on Yerozolimsky, is that right?
Yes, exactly. It's
Yeah.
not very far from where I am now.
And museum night would be a good night tonight or tomorrow to go and
This
see.
it is starting around 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it's going to take the whole night. But most of the activities are before 12. It's going to be wild in the military museum, national museum. So my advice is to go to the small museums or educational facilities, which most of them are opened and they are making a lot of interesting expositions and lectures and so on.
Tell us where people can go if they want to say hello to you.
Well, for me, it'll be Oriental Studies Department in New Novi Świat Avenue, 69, and number easy to remember.
Oh, yeah. Hey, this is a family show. Stop it there. Yeah, I'm going to try and get over there and see you. 69 Novi Świat, right?
Yep.
I'm writing it down. You did tell me earlier, but I'm writing it down now so I remember it. I'm going to remember it now after you made that crass joke.
Joke? I didn't make any joke.
You didn't. Okay, I got one more joke,
But
and
it
then
is
we'll move on.
graphically easy to remember that two circles and two little lines.
You see, I
I don't
brought.
know what you think about.
You see what I've got here?
Nope. What is that?
Encyclopedia of Jokes from the Friars Club. Also from my vault, where I keep many ancient volumes of jokes. That's why my jokes are so old.
All right, Methuselah.
Methuselah. Exactly.
There's a theory that jokes they are like comets.
Yep.
So they keep on returning in certain times. So some of them circle around in 70 years, some of them in 40 years. I don't know
you
about
mean like
your
clothes?
jokes. They may be even older.
Profession.
I got a joke for you. Did you hear the one about the Russians were going to? They decided not to go to the moon because the United States got there. This is an old, it's a long time ago. It was the United States went to the moon in July of '69, landed on the moon, or it was concocted the whole thing by Stanley Kubrick in New Mexico or something. But they went to the moon, let's just say for the sake of this joke, and I'm kidding, by the way, for the people who believe me. And the Russians had a different plan. So their scientists came in and said, the Americans are going to the moon. We have a totally different plan to the Politburo. They say, what is your plan? Or however a Russian accent goes. Or maybe it was Dracula who asked, because that sounded more like Dracula. And they go, he goes, well, the plan is we're going to go to the sun. They go, but comrade, it's much too hot. And he says, yeah, but we'll go at night. They go at night when it's not so hot on the sun.
Ogierd's like, yep.
It's nighttime. Okay, never mind. Yeah. All right. That's enough.
You realize, of course, Gagarin was never into space.
No, of course not. It was all done with mirrors.
No. He was shot in general direction, but the whole flight was much lower. He never actually got into space. He
Why
never
not?
went beyond the
Never
Earth's
went past the
atmosphere,
stratosphere?
top layers.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep.
So he never went past the stratosphere.
Well, they went past the stratosphere, but there is still parts of the atmosphere over there.
Okay.
Very diluted, but they're not considered space.
Yet. No. Doc.
Huh. Very interesting. What's going on? Let's talk about this article. In the second half, we'll talk something about Ukraine, I think. But let's talk about this article that I sent both of you and that everyone's talking about in Poland and in Britain. And the main headline is, Poland will be wealthier than Britain in 2030. It's time we took notice. This is from the Daily Telegraph, which is a conservative newspaper in the UK, broadsheet. And one of their correspondent visited Wrocław and was apparently gobsmacked by what he saw there. He says, on a visit to Wrocław a fortnight ago, that's 2 weeks for those who may translate for Americans and others, the zloty dropped, the penny dropped, the zloty dropped. Funny, huh? And Poland is rapidly becoming the new Central European superpower. Care to comment?
Actually, yes.
Go ahead.
Ogieرد's
Go ahead, Tony.
That's, I don't know if we would say by 2030. I think it's going to be a little longer than that. But yeah, it's coming to fruition, just like Germany did after World War II, because of the Marshall Plan being put in there. Now with the Ukrainian war, it's actually helped because Poland stepped up to where everybody else kind of backed off. And now the allies that were there that always said that, quote unquote, sort of support Ukraine and Poland are now supporting Poland to help Ukraine. So that's bringing a lot of infrastructure from the United States and other allies to Poland. And that's going to be that, and it's going to be great. But it's a lot more than that. Poland's been very strategic on how they've done their business in the past few decades, I would say about the past 30 years. And they've made a lot of smart, savvy decisions that have actually put them at the forefront even before this conflict. This conflict has accelerated.
We're losing you. Anthony?
I'm here.
Yeah, we lost you. You've got to stay steady with that. Lost your last sentence. You care to tell us what you just said again?
Oh, yeah, no, it's just that they have made significant leaps and bounds over the past 30 years, not only just because of the Ukrainian conflict, but not because of business savviness that they've decided to do over the years. Because Poland is known as a tech-savvy place and also a lot of industrial cities. And I wouldn't say just industrial, like dirty industrial, but I'm talking about manufacturing of the...
We're losing you again.
No, he's disappearing.
But
I understand what he's saying.
Yeah, okay, Ogierd, take over, and
the point of what we want to say, I think, is, yeah, it looks brighter than we would maybe think a long time ago, but now still we have a lot to do in Poland.
Yep.
A lot, because we have a lot of difficult and uneven playing field for small businesses, and those are things that are actually giving power to the actual economy. You need small businesses developing steadily, and it is not that possible in Poland yet. We need to work on that, and we also need to have a stable legal system, and it's being still destabilized in different ways. I'm not going to quarrel politically about how, but yeah, there are things that we need to work on. On the other hand, I'm aware also of one of the Russian bloggers who is emigrated long time away from Russia, is now working more with Ukrainians than with Russian, and he also visited Wrocław, by all places. And he was also struck by the way Poland is developing, and he's also saying that what we did in recent 30 years is something that Ukraine should do now.
Yes, but it's going to be hard for them to do it while there's a war on. But yeah, there's a pattern, and Poland has been very successful, starting with the shock therapy of Balcerowicz in the 1990s, which was to get inflation under control and to stabilize the zloty. And they did that, stabilized the currency, and then gave people a firmer base to borrow money and to invest, and made a big difference. Tony?
If I can say something, Ukraine right now is actually doing something very, very significant, and they actually started a trade commission. They actually had a meeting of multiple countries, of whom have supported Ukraine and continue to support Ukraine, this past week. And that is a big step, and that's exactly what Poland did in the 1990s when they broke off from the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union fell. So that is exactly what they're. What Ogierd just touched on is already been in the works.
Losing you again, Tony.
Oh, sorry. It's been in the works for about three months.
Yeah, whatever you were doing, don't do that, because you're okay right now. Or you were.
Okay.
No, you're okay. Yeah. Move your head so I can see. It's funny because you keep freezing. I can't tell if you're frozen or... Yeah.
No,
what we need to do with Ukraine and with other countries, we need to utilize the countries that stepped up during the Ukrainian conflict. Unfortunately, that would mean to exclusion of Hungary unless they change something major. But those countries like Czech Republic, Slovakia, the Baltic countries, which are pretty confident, little but confident economies that may work together. We need to work together, also with Scandinavian countries. And I'm really, well, I'm not economist, I'm a linguist. What I'm saying now is just a private opinion. But I think those countries should
yeah, but economists have private opinions too. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But Ogierd, you're not too far off of the Scandinavian countries, because Sweden and Finland just signed a multilateral unification deal to actually start making their military manufacturing together. And that's also bolstering up their industry. So they're not stupid. They're making this absolutely pivotal in what they're doing. And the war has actually pushed that.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to jump in here with something I've been saying and talking about for a long time, at least 10 years, probably more than that, maybe going back to the 2008 or 7 in this area, that a natural alliance would occur between Central Europeans led by Poland, give or take a couple of countries. We see Hungary on the edge of that. I don't know if it's Visegrad, I don't know if it's economic, I don't know if it's military or a combination of both. It should, but that echoes what Ogierd was saying. And then stretching around over the top with the Scandinavians, boy, that's starting to happen. And I was talking about this a long time ago, but it's natural, it makes sense that those countries, going back to Hanseatic League days, would get along. And then stretching down through the British Isles. And then with an alliance through the British and Polish as anchors to balance the Continentals and the Russians, classic old-time power stuff, with the United States, you see.
Well, basically, we need to balance out the Germans, perhaps the French, because those are powers that are not that nice to us, are they?
Well, when I say continental powers, those are the two I mean. Certainly not Italy.
But they're not trustworthy, except for Italy. But even Germany and France have.
Italians can't. Italians can, but Italy can't trust itself. That's the problem.
True.
And with France and Britain, France's own nuclear deterrent. What better example of how they don't trust anyone, so therefore they can't really be counted on in terms of an alliance. They're going to do what's good for the French. And that's not to the advantage of anyone. To be on your own is not to the advantage of anyone, as the new trading bloc is created. And then, as we've said before, the United States has kept the world safe for trade on the waterways and in the air since World War II. If that goes away, then because of destabilization through any combination of France and Germany working with Russians and China, then you have a problem, a destabilization. So the best way is for these smaller countries to combine. And then with the United States as an anchor weight in North American countries, maybe throw in Canada there, and then the Asian countries, which can, you have the series of Asian islands starting from up in Japan going right down to Australia, which is, after all, an island, but a continent of its own, obviously. Then you begin to see how you can contain another Cold War breaking out. Africa's up for play, but Africa goes where the money is.
Africa, we need to really take care of Africa, because that's where the Russians are playing very strong hand now.
And the Chinese.
And they have a very strong tie with South Africa, because South Africa has just been found out to be selling arms to Russia to help fund this war.
That's exactly what I was saying, that we need to really, really watch Africa. But on the other hand, you're right. South Korea, Japan, and then Australia and New Zealand are proving to be strong allies of ours.
Yeah, and Philippines, don't forget. Also very important. So and Taiwan. But even if you take Taiwan out, you still...
We never forget about Taiwan.
But even if you take it out, you still have this string of other, of really strong allies. It's in their interest. They don't have any love for China, any one of those countries. And of course, they've got to talk to their people.
One more thing that we should care about is remembering that no love for China line for you, Vietnam, because we can really flip that country.
Yeah, well, Vietnamese have no love for China. That's correct. All right, we got to come back in the second half. We'll be back with more of There's a Will with Ogierd Uziemblo and Anthony McFarlane Gonzalez. Enjoy these messages. See you soon. Right, welcome back, everybody. I'm with Ogierd Uziemblo and Anthony McFarlane Gonzalez, who's out on his bike training at the moment. Good to see you both. Thanks for being with us today. It's always a pleasure to see you, guys. You become
Hello,
such,
sir. It's
become
nice
such
to see
friends
you
of the
again.
show and friends of mine. So
Thanks.
it's always a pleasure. And you're very popular with the guys. When I said who was on the show, and I'll tell you why we don't have the other guests didn't join us today. They go, oh, that's the A team. So that's good. You're the A team, you two.
Wait, hold on.
You
What
mean
was
we're
it?
leftovers
Mr. T.
because other people didn't come? Thank you so much, really.
Yeah, I don't know which of you is Mr. T though. We got to figure that out. One of you is Mr. T, or maybe I'm Mr. T. I don't know.
No, you're the leader, man. What was his name? Not
Hannibal. Hannibal.
Ogierd is Murdoch.
The Murdoch's the flyer. I'm Hannibal then.
Yes.
I'm George Peppard.
Yep. Yep.
He was a terrible alcoholic, apparently. So, unfortunately, he's a good man. All right.
Ogierd is Mr. T, and I'm Murdoch.
Yeah, you're Murdoch. He's Mr. T. There you go. He's a bit like Mr. T. He's irascible, isn't he? Yeah.
We got to get the proper haircut.
We got to get you the haircut.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm so mean, nobody can bother me. Nobody can stop me. Okay. That was my Mr. T impression. Not very good. All right. So coming back to the story we're talking about, then we'll get to the offensive because, I mean, the Ukrainian offensive, is it going or not? We'll come to that in a second. But I just want to say, there's another article here, and this is, I never thought I would hear the British say that we need to emulate Poland in order to be successful. Now, on the one hand, you do have some sort of Brexiting talk in Poland. It's not serious, but you have that strain here too. On either end of the EU, the British on one in the west and the Poles on the east, you do have this tension against the middle, Germany and Poland, Germany and France, as we said before. That's traditional. That's traditional on both sides. But the idea that the British would say after Brexit that they want to, or even before Brexit, that they want to emulate Poland in order to be successful economically is something I thought I would never hear. I don't know what you guys think about that. But remember, it is the labor leaders saying this, which makes it even funnier. The labor leaders saying, hey, they know what they're doing to encourage small business. The labor is saying encourage small business, not the conservatives. Comments?
Have they really taken a look inside Poland? Olga just touched on this before. Small businesses are really having a hard time getting a foothold here. It's mainly the bigger corporations that are being successful in buying out the little guys, buying out those little spaces. If you can just even see it in the local bike shops that are here, they're struggling to stay alive. Even the major companies are struggling to stay alive because they can't get a foothold. The major corporations that I'm talking about are like the pharmaceuticals and the agricultural ones, and of course the industrial powerhouses like Toyota, Mopar, Daimler Chrysler. Their facilities are coming. Fiat, they have a major facility down in Katowice. Those are the ones that are taking the major spaces and not allowing small businesses to grow.
I think that's a very good point. I just want to say I've been traveling the country intensively for my travel show over the last 4 years. And, you know, I used to write a lot about business and for some titles that people know, like The Economist and some of the other newspapers, particularly in Britain. And I have to say that the growth of the Polish economy in the 90s, when I was a young guy following that, is really to be laid down at the efforts of, or based on the efforts of the entrepreneurs. It was exactly looking at what was happening in the street that told you what was going to happen in the future in Poland. It was not, you knew there'd be corporate investment. There were large companies. Procter & Gamble was here, building factories and manufacturing plants here in Poland in the 90s. For example, for fast-moving consumer goods. But what really was outstanding was the growth of entrepreneurs, starting with those street markets, the stadium market, the markets around the Palace of Culture. And in every town, small town to every major city, you had these markets. But particularly vivid was the case of this in Warsaw. And anyone who saw that had to know that Polish people like doing business. They like trading, they like being responsible for themselves, and saw finally the chance to escape regulation under communism as a great opportunity. Now,
I must say something.
Please do, jump in.
Listening to you and listening and taking a look at that, you say this. I didn't realize that he's Labour Party connected, but
Labour leader.
Labour Party must be somewhere in the La La Land then.
Keir Starmer, the Labour leader in Britain.
This is La La Land. It's no wonder they lost the Brexit battle. Because they are traveling somewhere in space.
Okay, why?
Well, what you're saying now about 90s in Poland, now the private entrepreneurship in Poland is having problems because of the over-regulation of the market. Some really dumb things like fire department regulations or some epidemiology regulations that are necessary, but on the other hand, they are not well executed. They're dead regulations that are just simply overwhelming small businesses. These need to be deregulated more. Some taxes need to be lifted. It's like a lot of things that we need to fix.
Well, it's also true that the reason I was saying that about the removal of communism and meaning that people would have more freedom to do what they desired to do is I wanted to set the table to say there's a much bigger bureaucracy in Poland now than there ever was under communism by any estimate. Okay, that's shocking, but that's been the case since the end of the 90s. It's not new. And people have to understand that when they're looking at this situation, the economic situation in Europe, that there are many more bureaucrats now. That is, people working for the state. How do those people get paid? They get paid by the private sector. The government doesn't make money. It prints money, but it doesn't earn money. It has money through taxes and it has to pay the bureaucrats. As you grow the bureaucracy, you're taking away from the vitality of the private sector. There's no other way around that. Okay, so this is the problem. It's the growth of bureaucracy and the need to pay these people. And the more you increase that, the more difficult you make it for entrepreneurs to succeed. Now, corporations can make deals. This is what's happening across the West. Corporations making deals with bureaucrats, long-term bureaucrats, not even politicians, who hold their sinecures and want to hold on to that, to their salaries and benefits. So you have that is opposed necessarily, those interests are opposed necessarily to private interests, particularly small entrepreneurs starting out. The more money you have to lay out in Zeus and tax, and Zeus is very high.
What is happening now with Poland?
Sorry?
I would say that what is happening now in Poland, we do have opportunity arising from the whole situation. But we need to forget about our little squabbles. And this is really dangerous because the breakup I observe in a society between the two major parties, I think mirrors the great breakup that is happening in the US, if it is something like that.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
I was really happy with the reaction to the Ukrainian conflict because it was unanimous. whatever party you supported, you still supported Ukraine, whatever way you could. And I hope it will go on this way. But we need to forget about this great breakup. We need to forget about squabbles. We need to work, cooperate. The social trust is one of the most important capitals that we have. That's the social capital, the social trust.
Well, that's true. And if you go, well, yeah, no community can be successful without that. But if you go back and look at the interwar period, between 1919 and 1939, that 20-year period, it was basically Poland was united under one leader, that was Piłsudski. And people more or less agreed, well, we'll try this for a while and eliminate the squabbling, which was preventing Poland taking off as a new nation right after World War I, getting organized and succeeding. So when they did that, it did tend to work. So there is a model for that. Unfortunately, the model is a kind of benevolent dictatorship, which then gets the Republicans, with a small r, the people who favor the Republic.
I disagree with that. No benevolent dictatorship is needed here. When I'm talking about getting rid of squabbles,
I was saying that under Piłsudski there was a benevolent dictatorship.
We need to get
not
people
now.
to think more, talk less.
Right.
It is not forcing them to do anything. We need to educate people, and that's the point. We need to educate people better.
Educate them on what?
On what first? How the economy works.
Right. Gosh, why not teach some business, some small business classes in school, right? It'd be a very good idea.
Supposedly now we have a lesson like that in Poland, but need to be developed. Hey, people do not learn doing their taxes in school. Why?
I know. I didn't have that in school, and boy, I wish I had. Personal finance and that sort of thing. We didn't have in school, and we should have. This is one of the most important things you need to learn starting out. And it would, put $1,000 into this stock, Johnson & Johnson, and keep it. And then you'll have money later. That sort of lesson. And then people know what they're working for. They're working toward, that kind of good economics on a personal level leads to good economics on a level throughout society. Tony, I know you want to say something.
No, I was just going to say that's exactly what I wish I learned beforehand. It's just like the hindsight's 2020 scenario, and Ogierd's right. We have to educate them young in order to have a more successful society, because the problem is the patterns of generations that we have now, they're going to keep on repeating themselves unless we actually make that change. And you can see that, and eventually societies will get sick and tired of it, like Ukraine did in 2014, because of the not bureaucracy, but the belligerent BS that was being controlled by.
Well, there was thievery on a large scale and cronyism. It was Tammany Hall, the old New York stuff from the 19th century on a major scale. It's exactly, how Belarus is run. It's run exactly like Tammany Hall. Boss Tweed is Lukashenko, and then he pays out to all his pals to keep him in line, and that's the way that economy runs.
Yeah, and that's what the people got sick and tired of in Ukraine, and that's why there is a trade commission that is being started. That's why it's been started, and that's why Procter & Gamble were in that meeting, and will continue to be in that meeting, and that's where there's going to be a lot of infrastructure change, and it has to. And I mean, that's one of the good things that happened here in Poland back in the mid-'90s after the fall, and it's what needs to happen again.
Yeah.
So, right, but we need to start at that point with that generation, that young generation of teens going on from there, because we have it's a blessing in disguise. It's like a double-edged sword, this war, and it's a good chance for Ukraine to start anew, and Poland has the experience from that, and that's the experience they need to share.
Yeah, and let's hope that brings the two countries closer into cooperation. That only gives them both more strength. But the question remains, when can this happen? How soon can this happen? Because while there's a very hot war going on, how can you invest? How can you?
they need to see. The whole thing about Poland is we're in a unique situation here in Poland because we can have everything set up on the side right there on the borders, being ready to go. We've already started to do that with a lot of the construction companies that are getting ready to move in once they have the green light from Ukraine to go in, because they're afraid, of course, getting blown up by incoming artillery or drone missile strikes.
But
So
that's banking on. I mean, no one knows when that's going to be possible, because this, look, as you know, being a military man yourself with a distinguished history in the military, you know very well how unpredictable something like this is. And we've talked about it a lot on this show and privately. So my question remains, it's all obvious that people need to prepare. The companies need to prepare, the governments need to prepare, and ordinary people need to prepare for looking down at what kind of jobs they're going to be doing, and training, particularly in the universities and in high schools. This is always the case, but in the Ukraine's case, it's frozen, isn't it, for now? Because you can't go and start building things when you don't know what's going to happen next. Unless you have to prepare for the ceasefire, and then when there's a ceasefire, but the problem that remains in this is, even if you prepare for that, and even if there is a ceasefire, even if Russia goes out of Ukraine, who thinks they're going to stop?
Do you think Russia is ready for a ceasefire? That's my question.
No.
They haven't even stopped ceasefire.
They need to be truly destroyed militarily in order to be able to have a ceasefire. And even then, we need a mechanism to ensure they're not going to repeat it in 2 years, 3 years.
Well, I don't think they're going to stop. That's the point. That's history. And I think they'll just regroup and try it again. Unless there's a change. I don't know. It seems to me there would need to be a change in the leadership, and then investment. But you know, the last time we did that in the 90s, as the West did that, and not only China's done a lot of investment in Russia, which is always at a hazard, particularly in the Far East. It's already been done once, and it didn't work because we got the same cronyism with Putin.
The problem is, and it's something that a lot of people would not agree with me, because I'm just a linguist. I understand I'm just a linguist. It's just how I see things. But I would say that the thing
Zelensky was an actor, even worse.
Into separate
Come on.
countries.
No, Ogierd, don't say I'm only a linguist. You're intelligent.
Otherwise, it will never work.
Ogierd, don't qualify I'm only a linguist. Just speak. You're a university man, teacher.
Okay, I'm at Chomsky now. Okay, I'm Chomsky now.
Yeah, exactly. So intelligent people have the opinions, and Zelensky was a comedian.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think I really insist that Russia needs to be split into a couple of different entities in order for this plan to work out. Well, Germany split into half worked out better than leaving Germany the way it was before the war.
I think we touched on this already about a few months ago, that we've already talked about Siberia, where it's actually told Moscow Greater that they want to break off from proper Russia and become its own country. And that would actually cripple Russia's economy, because that's where most of the resources come from, is Siberia, and especially on the what the heck is it called, the Arctic front. And that's where the next great race is going to be for e-commerce, or sorry, not e-commerce, but e-commerce in general, for shipping lanes, because that shipping lanes will cut down in half instead of going through the Suez Canal. There'll be 2 routes. So it'd be advantageous for them to do that. And that's why Ogierd's comment and statement is absolutely valid and true, and it needs to happen soon. But it's just whether the Russians want it or not, and that's the thing. A lot of these are going to not want to relinquish.
But dictators don't make good decisions. They make lousy decisions. And at the end, even I'm not going to say Hitler. Well, there I said it. But I'm not going to use him as an example. But let's look at the Argentine dictatorship in the early 1980s. They thought it would be a good idea to occupy those islands that were British colonies, the Falkland Islands, and that Britain would do nothing. What a miscalculation. Same miscalculation that Putin made on, it's just a smaller example of the same kind of paradigm, which is dictators underestimating the opposition because they live in an echo chamber. That's one thing, but also because it's not in their interest. And a lot of times these guys would rather drive the ship right onto the reef and sink it with everybody on board than compromise their power. This is the problem, I think, at the root of the problem of a dictatorship. And it's the same problem with China or Russia. This is the root of the problem, right? So how do we deal with that? If that doesn't change, then the relationship can't change.
Well, do you think that anything will change in Russia if Putin goes away?
We might get something worse.
No.
Or what do you think, Anthony? Why don't you jump in?
It won't change. It's because it's a societal change that needs to happen. We will have another dictator.
Yeah.
It'll probably have to be 4 or 5 generations before we actually start seeing a better Russia. And that's flat out. It's probably going to take the next 150, 200 years for the Russian society to get back on track and be actually viable for the world market.
I think the problem, yes, but I don't know how long. I don't even know how to think that far ahead. But I think definitely the problem with what Russia has done is that they have they're not only an autocracy, but they've become a criminal, murderous, invasive, intrusive autocracy, which is completely ruthless with other people and their own people. I don't know how people apologize for this. What kind of world do you want to live in where you think that's okay? You know? It's not okay if we do it. It's not okay if they do it. It's just not okay.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I would call them a terrorist state because they are actually acting like terrorists. They're terrorizing and invoking fear and killing people because of their own self-interest. And what? For what? Really?
Okay.
There can be on a mass scale. So to me, they're a terrorist state.
Well, it's interesting that you're saying that, considering you've been in Afghanistan, you've been in Iraq, in serious encounters in both places. So it's interesting to hear you say that. But then do you say that how is Putin? Let me ask this question: how is Putin different from Osama bin Laden?
Osama bin Laden.
I'll tell you how. Osama bin Laden did not have the resources he has.
Well, no, but however,
but in character.
In character, Osama bin Laden had more morals and ethics, and he was honorable. Putin is not.
Gosh, what a thing to say. I don't know what to say to that. But I think it's an interesting statement.
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to glorify a terrorist, but I mean,
I know you're not. I'm not saying that. That's not.
But no. But here, hold on. Hear me out. Because it's not my intention to do that. But he has more honor.
Obviously not. Yeah.
But he has more honor than Putin because Putin fakes it. He is put on a great facade. He goes to the church and monopolizes the what was it called, the Orthodox Church that they have over there. He doesn't practice what he preaches. Osama bin Laden did. Yeah, whether or not is the Quran is a completely different book than what the Bible is, and people would argue that I'm not going to be going into a religious argument.
We don't have time to do that because we're down in the last minute. But I think.
Oh, okay, but yeah, he's honorable than Putin.
I think we've come through to a very interesting point. That is, there's a great essay article to be written on exactly the point. Maybe I shall attempt it on exactly that point. That is such an interesting and provocative intellectual idea that you put forward. How that Osama bin Laden may, in fact, be more honorable than Putin's behavior. And gosh, that's something that needs to be looked at.
You must realize one thing. Russians very often, when describe Putin's behavior, They would say Leningradskaya Podvorotnya, which means a courtyard in Leningrad, when he learned to fight and beat up people. And that's the way he behaves, like a little
Bully.
bully from Leningrad.
With no principles. He doesn't seem to have any principles except his own enrichment and power.
Yeah, it's called
And you
points
can't say
in
that.
Russia.
You
So
can't
he's
say that
living
about
in
bin
points.
Laden. He would have stayed in Saudi Arabia, where he was vastly wealthy, rather than do what he did. So there is a very interesting and explosive comparison to be made there. It's almost hard to think about. Yeah. Anyway, we got to stop with that. I want to thank my guests on the show this week, Ogierd Uziemblo from Warsaw University, and I want to thank Anthony McFarlane Gonzalez, who is a cyber expert and ex-special services operative. Thank you, gentlemen. Always a pleasure. And thank you for watching. There's Will. We'll see you next time.